So, Dre, I have one thing to say for now.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yeah, let's go. Let me join you.
Do you know what that's from? Do you know? Of course you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better know what that's from because why?
It's the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, we just watched that movie last night, so you better remember.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's the call of money, the call of the wild. You ready to talk about all of that?
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
This is Mikel-Claire.
And this is Trey.
And we are the couple of entrepreneurs. We're here to share with you our journey of successes and setbacks as we enter the world of entrepreneurship now that we no longer have 9-to-5s due to the new normal of the world and the pandemic.
Join us as we race the clock to start earning money, gain consistency, and overcome self-doubts and uncertainty as we search for our voices and obtain personal and financial growth.
So, The Wolf of Wall Street, amazing movie.
Wow.
Starring Leo DiCaprio.
Good old Leo.
Yeah, and I can't remember, when did that movie come out? Oh my gosh, 2000.
I think it said 2013.
I think so.
Yeah, so about 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while, so if you haven't seen it, I don't know where you've been, but please check it out. It's an amazing movie. Be aware, though, there's a lot of language, sex, and drugs. I'm just going to put it out there. There's a lot of that.
Oh, yeah. If you've ever watched a Scorsese movie before, then you know there's typically a lot of violence, sex, drugs, cursing.
That's right. It's directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of raw and gritty.
It's definitely rugged.
Have you, Leo's character, have you ever heard of him before you saw The Wolf of Wall Street?
No, I'd never heard of him before. I didn't even know he was actually a real person, to be honest with you, before you told me.
Jordan Belfort.
Oh, where did I come up with Jonathan Butler?
That's okay.
It's a JB.
It's a JB.
JB.
Yeah. Exactly. Man, you know what's funny to me now that I'm sitting here thinking about it is how far Jordan Belfort came in the movie from when the time that it started to to how it closed out. When it first started off and he was meeting with his boss for the first time, I mean, he hadn't even had a drink during business hours before, and he was looking at his boss like, yo, this is kind of crazy. And then not only did he have a drink, he was offered a couple of hits of coke, and if you were given some interesting advice regarding relieving stress and getting your mind right for the business day, you know, he had a pretty hardcore intro into everything. Do you have any like rituals before you get your day started? Like for me, like my morning ritual is coffee, you know, to kind of like get my mind right. Is there anything that you do to kind of like get your mind right?
I don't, honestly, when in the morning now, I'm such a creature of habit that it's just routine for me.
Right.
So the minute my alarm goes off at 7 o'clock, I literally get up, get out of bed, take my vitamin, take my green superfood, and then start the coffee. And then I get right to my computer and start working. So it's, for me, it's more of a routine creature of habit type of thing than an actual ritual per se.
Yeah. I thought the ritual thing was kind of interesting because there's some points in the movie where he's kind of like rallying the troops together as if it's like a basketball game or a football game. And, you know, sometimes when you watch sporting events, there's that guy that like gets everything crazy and gets everybody all fired up and ready to go. And that's how I feel about my morning cup of coffee. That coffee is like Jordan Belfort screaming at his troops, talking about, let's get the day going.
Nice. I'll make sure I make an extra pot tomorrow.
Well, okay. So outside of the let's get ready to go qualities, was there any other qualities that you thought benefited him in business?
I do actually. Even though he was quite the character and he had a lot going on throughout the movie, as far as like in business, one thing that he definitely had that can help somebody is he thrived under pressure. Like if he was in a situation where he had to sink or swim, he grabbed the bull by the horns and he was on. Like he was like a switch almost. The minute he picked up the phone to start calling people in regard to stocks and selling stocks and penny stocks and that type of thing. Right. He was just, he was like a robot. Yeah. The minute he had to talk to somebody and sell. Yeah. He was a salesman. Yeah. So I think that him thriving under pressure was the biggest thing that I saw as a quality in him. So what about you? Do you think that he had any qualities that benefited him in business, or was he just
Oh yeah, he had a ton of them. One is just his tenacity. He started out from the bottom, didn't mind getting screamed and yelled at by people who he would eventually make tens of millions of dollars more than. But, he was still humble enough to kind of like start from the beginning. He was willing enough to learn. And that was something that I thought was pretty interesting. Even though the advice might not have been the best advice, he still took it and then made it work for him. That being a lot of sex and drugs. I don't know if that helps in business, but it seems to have helped him quite well. His ability to just jump into things kind of immediately, just take the bull by the horns, kind of like you said. But the very first time he was introduced to the company that was doing penny stocks, and he hopped on the phone and he just immediately started connecting with the customer. He jumped in, he figured out exactly what it was that the customer wanted. He made them feel comfortable. He told them exactly what they needed to hear in order to convince them to sell. He was a salesman through and through. He sold everybody. He sold his customers. He sold his comrades. I was listening to him pitch. He sold his employees on believing the business. He sold on every single level. So yeah, he had tons of great qualities that I wouldn't mind having on that level. So, of course, minus the sex, drugs, and alcohol and all that other stuff. But his ability to just rally the troops, that's a dope quality to have. Well, we talked about the the obvious with the sex and drugs. What other things that you saw in the movie could be a detriment, or we could even just talk about how those sex and drugs were a detriment?
Well, I think he kind of didn't know when enough was enough. I think he was one of those people that had to take things to the extreme, which can be good if it's a good thing, but if it's a bad thing, right, then I think you gotta not take it to the next level. I will probably cut this out, but he throwing the little people around and, bringing in a whole bunch of marching bands and things like that. I think he took it to an extreme. Yeah. And something, you can have fun. I have no problem having fun, but I think there's a level that is just ridiculous. And he took it to that extra level. So that's what I say. He just didn't know when enough was enough.
Jordan just seemed to give in to all of his vices and things that are personal challenges, especially regarding sex and drugs. I hate to compare apples and oranges regarding vices, but my thing, I don't even know if you would consider this a vice, but I love to just spend a lot of time watching TV and movies, playing video games, just having dumb, mindless conversation with friends. Those aren't necessarily vices per se, but if I just give into just the wanting to do those things, I wouldn't be able to get anything else done, and it would control my life. And those things can control other people's lives. Jordan didn't seem to have an off switch for that. He just let it ride. And then what made things even worse is, we've had this conversation before about the company you keep, and the people that seem to have surrounded him were just all in on this type of debauchery. So he really didn't even stand a chance. Even if he did want to kind of go the straight and narrow, his environment probably wasn't going to allow him to do that. With all that being said, between the good things and the bad things, was there any kind of overlapped? Was there something that could be perceived as both a benefit and a detriment to his business?
When I said that he didn't know when enough was enough, if you turn it a little bit and look at it a little differently with perspective, he was definitely persistent. So it just depends on where you're focusing that energy, right? Because you can be persistent in learning about something. He was persistent in learning his approach as a salesperson, learning his pitch. But then he was also persistent in those quaaludes, you know what I mean? So it's just it just depends on what you're focusing on. And I think it's about perspective in that regard and what you're actually gearing your energy toward. What about you? Is there any overlap?
I think the gift and the curse is not knowing when to quit. I think that you need that kind of tenacity when you're starting out, of not knowing when to quit, because you got to do things to kind of get over the hump. You just got to just go and just do it, and then kind of just take the leap in order to get the ball moving. but it could be a detriment too, because sometimes you got to know when to say when and let things go. A perfect example in the movie was when he had to get his money back from the Swiss bank accounts, and he was about to, set sail in some choppy water, and that ended up being like this massive storm that ends up sinking his boat. Spoiler in case you haven't seen the movie. And not only did it sink his boat, the rescue plane that was sent out to get him, the people died in an attempt to go get him. So his obsessive behavior regarding getting money, killed people as a result of it. I mean, it was a laughable kind of moment, but if you sit back and think about it, it's like, man, that's pretty serious. Knowing when to turn it on and off, but also having the courage to obsess in a healthy way, if there is such a thing as a healthy obsession, in order to get the ball rolling.
What did you think of him like as a businessman and leader in general? Was he a good one, or was he like crazy as heck?
I think he was a great leader. I'd have followed him. It's something about the way he can get the blood moving, get the juices flowing, and make you believe in the things that he's saying. I think that's what a great leader has, is the ability to convince you that the path that they're about to go on is a righteous and worthy path, and you should want to go on it because you're going to benefit. And not only are you going to benefit, I'm going to make it easier for you. I'm going to show you the way. And he led by doing. That was one of the things that I really picked up on, and what I think is admirable. It wasn't just let me just sell and then just beat you over the head and tell you to make money. He wrote out a full-on script and game plan that he gave his employees and said, if you use these words that you have seen me do, I promise you will be rich beyond measure. So it's one thing to be told that, but it's another thing for the person to show you how to do it after you've seen them have success. So yeah, I think he was an exceptional leader. Now, if in my younger days, I probably would have been like, let's go get the money. But now as a grown adult, I don't want those kind of problems. But yeah, I'd have followed him. What did you think of him as a businessman, as a leader? Would you follow him?
I thought he was like an amazing motivator and mentor, which I thought was great. He did lead by example, like you said, which was good, because then you're just not throwing people to the wolves, that's kind of funny, ironic a little bit. You're not throwing people to the wolves. You're saying, I can show you how it's done. This is my business. I believe in it. I believe in my methods of getting it done. Mm-hmm. And this is the way. And it's proven success. Right. And I want you to be successful because you work for me. And in turn, that makes me successful. Mm-hmm. So he was an amazing motivator. His speeches were of great note. He was like a great orator. Right. I mean, he sure had some enthusiasm behind his words. Let's put it that way. But could I have thrived under his leadership? I don't think so. That environment, it would have been way too difficult for me to focus.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And it was just, I think in that particular way that they sell in that industry, right, it was just too competitive for me. Yeah. Like I am a very, very extremely competitive person, right, but I'm not cutthroat. So that part of it would have been very difficult. But as far as like his leadership, right, it was A1.
Yeah, it was super aggressive. Well, did you like the movie overall, even if it didn't have anything to do with entrepreneurship? And as far as why you would like it, just is it a good movie?
I thought so. It was a great story. It was like a great rise and fall and rise again type of movie, which I love. I do like to see people succeed. I do like to see people overcome things. I do like to see, lots of money. Let's be real. I like to see like all the fun things you can do with money, like buy a yacht for your wife. Those kind of things, like, are always a great motivator for me. And I'm a Leo fan. Overall, I thought it was an amazing movie, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who doesn't mind a little 4-letter words going on. So did you like it, and why?
Oh yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of most Scorsese movies. And then I'm a pretty big fan of Leonardo DiCaprio too. It's just something about him. He just brings that good work to the table. And I don't know how the real Jordan Belfort Wow. That's just incredible. I'm willing to bet Leo was such a good actor that the real Jordan Belfort probably didn't have that much personality. I mean, it was just, just let me just applaud that. Now, even though the movie is probably very loosely based on Jordan Belfort's life, was there anything that you may have actually learned about how money is made on Wall Street in this movie?
I've never really been much into stocks and bonds and that type of thing. And they did not explain any of that other than a little bit about like penny stocks, which was still a little confusing to me, and how much commission they make off of that. But could I go into the stock floor and trade some stocks? No. Could I sell some stocks right now based off of this movie? No. So as far as that's concerned, no. But did I learn anything about business in general? Yeah. A little bit. I learned Swiss bank accounts are not always the way to go.
Right.
Which is what people always assume if you're trying to get, So that's what I learned about business in this movie. But did you learn anything about Wall Street or just business in general?
I think you hit on something that was pretty real, because a lot of times, and this is just based off of my own ignorance, I just assumed that, you'd go to like a bank in the Cayman Islands or a Swiss bank or whatever. There's one of these international banks. You just hand them the money and then, it's just automatically safe. I never really considered the possibility that, that the loopholes might not be so easy to navigate and manage, and how the bank themselves could be trying to swindle you. So that was something that I learned a lot about. The other thing I kind of learned was that there wasn't a lot of like technical jargon regarding Wall Street and stocks and bonds and all of that. And it was kind of really tongue in cheek how Leo kind of addressed it. Like there would be those moments where, where he would break the fourth wall and talk to the camera, talk to the audience and say, well, I'm gonna go ahead and explain to you exactly what it means for this process to happen. And then he like stops himself in the middle of it and it was like, wait a minute, this doesn't even matter. Let me just make it real simple. These people get me money. And then he just made it that kind of simple. I think that was a great part of the film because nobody really came to see that. We just want to see, the rise and the fall and how the ugliness of it really went down. I appreciate the movie for taking it that direction.
I had one more thing about the Swiss bank accounts that I wasn't like, I didn't know that you had to actually like physically take the money there at that time. Like I thought it was like a
wire transfer?
Money wire. Yeah. But I know that's traceable.
Right.
Well, I'm assuming so.
Yeah.
So I get that, but I had no idea like you actually had to have someone like carry it on them physically. Yeah. So that was interesting to learn. Not that I'm planning on having a Swiss bank account.
Right.
Necessarily. In case hold on. Is anybody listening?
Yeah.
Is this thing on? Is there a bug? Is there a bug on this thing? Okay. But yeah, so that was another thing I just learned.
This is just slightly off the subject, but it reminded me of this Instagram video that I saw that was on Mike Tyson. He was saying that when he was younger, him and Robin Givens used to go to the bank and just get like stacks of cash, just get like these big duffel bags and then just, fill the duffel bag up full of cash. And he said one of the things that surprised him the most about money was that how bulky it is and how heavy it is. And he said that, you watch like a lot of music videos where it's like a lot of, I don't know, gangster rap or whatever it is where they're moving like duffel bags full of money. He said that's kind of fake because when you get like $1 million in cash, it's just super big. You just can't just run around and slang it around and stuff. And there's a scene in The Wolf of Wall Street where they're trying to tape the money to a mule to get them to take it overseas. It's one of those things you just never think about. Like if you're going to move $20 million in cash, like how big is that? We just always assume it's like this small little briefcase that, you just tote over and there's your $20 million. But it's like, nah, man, that's a lot of paper. That's a big problem to have to kind of take care of. So it was just a fun thing to kind of be like, oh yeah, I remember Mike Tyson talking about that.
Was there anything else that surprised you about the movie before we kind of wrap it up a little bit?
Here's something that shouldn't have been a surprise, but I guess it is. How easy it is for really wealthy people to avoid doing big time. Jordan Belfort thought that he was going to do some serious time for his crimes. Maybe, I think initially they said some of the numbers are like 20 to 30 years or something like that. And then he gets there and, he's playing tennis and he says something. He's like, oh, man, I forgot something. I'm rich. So the rules don't really apply. it's not a big surprise, but it is just that reminder that if you have wealth and you acquire riches, it could solve a lot of problems. And he even says that in one of his rallying speeches to get the troops going. He's like, whatever problems you have, you can get rich, and getting rich will help kind of solve it. I mean, I'm obviously not quoting him exactly, but sometimes I have to kind of remind myself of that. It doesn't solve all the problems in the world. Wealth doesn't, and you would be foolish to believe that it can solve all the problems, but it can solve a whole lot of problems. And it's also good to keep that in mind. Surprises for you?
I was sitting here trying to think while you were answering that question. And for me, he had a best friend in the movie. And the best friend kind of blindly followed him. And I get you have people that you see that have things that you want. And in this case, he wanted his wealth. He was like, yo, I admire your car. How do we live in the same place? And you just made $70,000 in a month. So,
72,000 to be exact.
72,000 to be exact. He was like, if you show me that pay stub, I'll quit my job and work for you right now. And then from that point on, he was like, ride or die.
Yeah.
That blind faith in somebody that you don't even really know, that was kind of surprising for me. But other than that, no real surprises based off of his behaviors. So
yeah, what else is kind of might be a small surprise was that he worked with his dad so closely.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that part.
Yeah, he still plugged his family into the whole thing, and he never really forgot about the people that he came up with, which was kind of a bit of a surprise too. Even though they didn't know anything at all, he still had their back and then gave them the tools that they needed to make insane amounts of money at a very high level. So that is a bit of a surprise too.
Well, they did have the foundation of sales. I do remember that.
Right.
They weren't stockbrokers.
No.
But they did have the foundation, and then he just took it and was like, this is how you can grow that.
He really broke it down to it being a simple process, and that was sell me this pen. If you could sell this pen, then you could pretty much sell anything in the world. And I think that's kind of how he treated his employees. That's kind of a pleasant way to just look at business in general. Keep it simple. Get down to the basics. That's as good of a place as any to go ahead and stick this pin in. You have been tuning into The Couple of Entrepreneurs. Please do us and yourself a huge, massive favor and slam that subscribe button. Hit it hard, and make sure you tell your friends and family that we are here talking money, business, entrepreneurship, cool movies, Leonardo DiCaprio, and how to get money and selling pins, all that stuff. Just go ahead and wrap it up in one big bow. Thank you for tuning in. This is Trey Murphy and the absolutely exquisite
Mikel-Claire.
Peace out.